Right, guys. Just like to sum up what I've been seeing and watching around everywhere Europe. I just keep an eye on just general things. Anyway, we're going on a road trip again tomorrow, internal in Bulgaria, to the south east corner, which is quite sparsely populated, actually, near the Greek border. Um, and it's like a microclimate down there. It's always warmer, about 4 or 5 degrees warmer than it is here, and that means in the summer it's baking. So it was a silk area, and there's still evidence of that. The silk, what they call silk houses, and the great big long houses, because it's like a production line. Silk, they've got to spin it and pull it out down these houses, and they have a big long section. It's like a bowling alley. They could turn them into bowling alleys, actually. And there was actually grants available years and years ago for silk, reviving the silk industry, and the trees are still there. The trees that the silkworms need. What are they called now? Um, can't remember. They only feed on a certain amount, certain tree anyway. The leaves, and they're all still there. The trees. So probably could be done if anyone's interested in starting silk, and it could be a specialist market, as it's been pointed out by some people. So that's where we're going. It's a place called Ivalovgrad, and it's not a spectacular town by any means. It's nothing. There's not much there really at all. But it's a nice little place, little corner, and around the place as well. It's quite spartan. It's got this deserted feel. It can be a bit depressing, really. You go into these deserted villages, and there's actually like a commune of, I think, the Germans, and they kind of look a bit scary sometimes. The German hippies, they all stare at you as you're going through the town, which isn't that's not good. And a proper staring at you. It's like not the Bulgarian stare. Bulgarian stare is what are you doing here? Wonder where you're from. This is like what are you doing here? And they're quite scary. And the Germans, and you can tell straight away the Germans. They've all got these. They always wear beads and bracelets and all proper hippie stuff. And they're always gaunt, skinny. Um, anyway, that's the Germans, and I hope they do okay. Anyway, but like, just like, just like what I observe, like they don't wave at you. I've waved at a couple of them, and they just stare at you, like, what are you waving at me for? Because in little villages and that, you'd often wave at people, and they even stop and talk to them, saying how are you doing, like, and or for directions. But like we can stop and just talk to people, and sometimes my road trip manager, he's there for ages chatting to these people, and and you meet people in the middle of nowhere, the absolute back of beyond. You think, where's this guy come from? Where's he going? And then you find out. And next minute he's got a house behind all these trees in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, so we're going to Ivalovgrad. And the reason why we go there quite often, actually, is my road trip manager, he served, that was the Iron Curtain in the old days. and these like posts, watchtowers on sticks, and they're all still there. And that was the Iron Curtain. And he served in the military there on the border with Greece, which was the West. And he goes on like a pilgrimage every year. And he had a mate there, and we used to go and see him, but he died. So he goes to his grave now, which is, and his wife's still around, and his family. And they're making grapes, which he started off, I think, with his brother. And they used to do the grapes, and he didn't make the wine, but now they're making the wine as well. So he buys a ton of it when we go down there. He bought a ton of it last year. And I don't buy that particular wine because it's Merlot wine. I don't like Merlot. I don't like the taste. So I didn't get any. Well, I actually did because they got an extra. They bought about 55 litres. They bought about 50 of them. The car was struggling on it, coming up the mountain. It had 100 litres plus of wine sloshing around in it. And it was everywhere, and it was in between people's heads and under the seats and between people's legs. It was everywhere. Everywhere. And in between the two front seats was piled up with wine. If we'd have had a crash, there just would have been wine pouring down the road. Everywhere. But that's what they got. And they also make down there tahini, which I think is made of sesame seeds. And they've got this like little backyard factory behind the house, and they buy it's called tahan here, tahini, and they buy it there. I think it's sesame seeds. So that's another thing. But there is another winery there, and I buy a carton from there because they do the Syrah, which is Shiraz wine. So that's where we're going to go tomorrow, hopefully. And the we've got another weather window, so that's good. So I'm looking at the UK, this Starmer thing, and everyone's getting all like, excited about this petition. I mean, and they think they're going to having a vote or an election is going to solve anything in it. So who are they going to vote in? Because that Farage and that, I mean, I like Nigel Farage as a bloke, and that's about it. But he wouldn't lead the country. He'd talk himself out of it. He doesn't. He's one of those blokes he's a forever protester. It's a bit like, not like Corbyn, but like Corbyn, he wasn't leadership material either. And nor is Farage. He talks a good game, Farage, and that's it. You've seen in Brexit, as soon as they won the Brexit, he disappeared. He skedaddled. He was promising everybody everything, as if he could deliver it. And he wasn't, I don't think he was expecting to win, because they had nothing in place. Nobody did. No one did. And nobody expected that result. So all these things, well, you're going to vote your way out of it. It's like complete nonsense, And that like having an election's going to save Britain again. You've just had one, and you've changed prime ministers about 8 times in the last 5 years. I might be exaggerating there, but it seems like a lot. And health ministers and all this carry on, And these politicians are not going to save anybody. They never have done. It was always the industrialists and businesses that ran the economy, not politicians. Now the politicians are, they're treading on everyone's toes, like the farmers and all that. And it's not just Labour. This was started by the other crowd, the Sunak boys. So they've already done this process of like voting in saviours a number of times, and without addressing the main problems. And like, the reason why they won't be addressed is because the people, most of the people, are behind the policies of anyone who's in. Like, not working is number one. Nobody works. Everyone's a security guard now in the UK. No one produces anything. Everyone just runs about, just not producing any profit on things, except for maybe selling some imported food. And they're even going after that as well. The food's the big one. There's going to be food shortages in the UK, and then you'll find out what everyone's been behind. All this net zero crap, that just costs a lot of money. That costs a load of money, all that stuff. And all these other movements, like, the Pride movement and all this immigration, it costs enormous amounts of money and doesn't produce anything except security guards, and who are the immigrants themselves. Well, second generation, half of them. But so that this is what's happening in the UK. But the people have been behind all this, and it all feeds in to all the same stuff: wokeness, political correctness, and like minorities and all this garbage. And they've done it forever, and now the country's collapsing because of the weight of all this rubbish, And they've never mentioned the traffic, right? I'll just observe that the last couple of years I was there, I was living in caravans, but like, I had a caravan and it was on a good site, and I had a good deal. So I did a bit of commuting, which was against the whole idea of getting a caravan. But like, I thought, like, well, it's not that far. It was kind of just north of Liverpool to the first job was Ellesmere Port, which is only about 15 miles, and it used to take hours to get there. Hours through the tunnel and like traffic or coming home. It was ridiculous. And the one thing I would do in the UK is not all these 15-minute cities and ULEZ zones and all that. It's commuting. Commuting is massive in the UK, and it's not really done too much around the Balkans, especially intercity commuting and all that. People will go to work just from just about the outskirts, but a lot of people live in cities, in the city, and they have good tram systems and all the rest of it, trolley buses, which is the answer to all the inner city problems, is good transport. And they use it here. They use it. All the trams. And all the cities have got trams, all the big cities. Just been to Romania, they've all got trams, trolley buses. And people live in the cities and work in the cities. So that's solves that problem. But this commuting, and I used to go, and the second job was near south of Manchester. Just near the runway, Old Stringham Way, around there. Not Old Stringham, just further south, near the services. I can't remember the name. Anyway, it was on the flight path. Just all the planes used to come over with the wheels just above our heads. On this job, and the traffic was horrendous, and I used to have to come back over the Thelwall Viaduct, or I could go over the Runcorn Bridge, and the Runcorn Bridge was slightly better, but you have to pay online and all this kind of stuff, and you could even hit traffic that way. It was potluck. You only need one incident, and the commuting was absolute. And I was commuting, but in the construction industry, you've got to commute. You have to. But like you're driving along the motorway with people who are going from city to city to sit in front of a computer screen half the time. That's all you see in these buildings. Just rows and rows and rows of computer screens, and they don't have to be there, really, especially every day. Maybe 1 or 2 days a week, which a lot of them are doing now. But the commuting in the UK, that's a big one of the biggest problems of all, I think. Anyway, traffic. So this voting Starmer out and all the rest of it, that's what they're calling it now, voting him out. But you've got to vote someone else in, and none of them are going to save you. This is the whole thing. And the people of Britain have gone along with all this wokeness and political correctness, and that's all they used to go on about, in health and safety. And none of that produces anything. None of it. And all this, one-way systems in supermarkets and all this, and now shoplifting is everything they do. It wouldn't even be contemplated. People wouldn't even understand what you're talking about. If you said you could go in a shop in the Balkans and you could steal up to 100 quid's worth of stuff and no one's going to do anything, they would just kind of say, what are you talking about? What you're on about? I can't understand what you're talking about. Just go say that again. That's what they do. It's just unheard of. And if you said, right, you're going to commute every day. Some people commute. They do. But not many at all. And you say, right, you're going to commute 80 miles each way, which would be probably 100 kilometres each, either way, every day, before 8 o'clock. And then you've got to find parking, which you're going to be paying an arm and a leg for. And they'd say, what are you talking about? And you say, well, what are you going to do in the other town then? And they'd say, oh, such and such a job. I'd say, well, why wouldn't you get that job here? They say, because the guy from the other city's going to do this one here. And that's what happens. We swap places, especially for computer on a screen jobs. I mean, they can be anywhere. They can be in your house. And they are now, so largely, well, a lot of them. And they're even trying to stop that, get people back into offices. But anyway, and a lot of the industry in the UK was to do with hospitality and eating out and all that, entertainment. And once the disposable income goes, that starts to erode that then. And like all the high street shops, have disappeared. And with each high street shop goes an ecosystem of everything. That means your rent, your rates, the window cleaner, the cleaner, the small suppliers, and everything goes to the huge areas, that these massive mega supermarkets, which it's better for the consumer, I think, rather than struggling to get into a high street and not being able to park anywhere. It's another thing, the parking. The guy called Wandering Turnip, he points all that out, and the parking is a big issue. I mean, I wouldn't go and pay £3 to just go to a local shop, get some eggs. I'd go to the supermarket where it's all free parking. That's where I'd go. No question. And our town, I think they've realised that. In our town here in Bulgaria, And a lot of the towns that you go to, or cities, they've got this parking now, SMS parking, and people wouldn't wear it in the rural areas. And our town's refrained from all this parking stuff. It's all, by and large, everything's free parking still. And even towns nearby charge you for parking, and a lot, few of them always have done. But our town doesn't charge, and it's I think it's a policy, and I think someone said that once anyway. So I watch a guy called Sasha Yanshin. I think he's of Turkish descent by the look of the name. Yasha Shansin. He's very good. He's the foul-mouthed economist. And he's good at swearing. Actually, he's good at the swearing, and he's pretty good at the economics and why Britain's in the mess it's in and all the rest of it, and why they can't get out of it without. I can't see a way out at the moment. I can't see the UK find another Joker card. They found one in the 80s by doing various things, by just getting rid, by becoming the money laundering capital of the world, basically, which they still are. But other people are doing it as well now, and the UK hasn't got the clout. But the UK is the king now, the absolute king of bad moves, and a lot of them are getting these people in power who like to think they're going to be the. Who would have ever thought that Starmer would be the saviour of the UK? And people did. They actually thought that this Labour government, and if you see the people in there, are going to save the country. Now, the UK is just the king now of the bad moves. What they do is they look for money in places like pensioners' heating things, which is just a couple of £100, to the person. I've spoke about that before, but and they're looking for money of other things, like this ULEZ stuff and all that. And it's nothing, none of it's positive on how to make money. And that's what they may be missing, is how to make money and make things better. And keep the money circulating, which they don't. And the high street's a good example of that, because the money at least circulated. And it does here. A lot of small businesses in Balkans, and that's why it's remaining affordable, and why it's remaining local stuff. And actually, the supermarkets, they do okay, but they don't take over as much. They don't just wipe out the high street here. Anyway, up to now, anyway, it hasn't happened, and it's all smaller businesses. And in Bulgaria, the politicians and that kind of people, they don't get involved. They just go, right, it's a free market economy, boom, away you go. And we haven't had a government, and we still haven't got one. And they've just had more elections. But the difference here is nobody expects an election to make any difference. And they never expected politicians that they're going to save anything or anything like that. The best thing the politicians do here is keep out the way, and all they do is get on with the corruption. As long as they get their little slice of the pie, and they're quite good actually getting money off the EU, Brussels. I don't know whether Brussels has realised yet whether they're being had off by these poor Balkan nations, and the money that they send, and when you think, hang on a minute, per capita. And they must look on the map and think, oh, there's Bulgaria, but they don't say, well, how much is that per capita, this latest payment or whatever. They don't say, well, it's only 6 million people. 6.3 it is now. But I don't think they take that into account, when they're giving the payments out. Because you look at the other payments, like Romania, which is like, I think there's about 19, 20 million there. And they're getting the same kind of payments, in the number of euros as Bulgaria, and there's only 6.5 here. So I think someone's having someone off. But the UK, and that's another thing. The Romanian, they've just had these elections, and this guy who they're saying he's pro-Russia, and he's this, that, the other. He's nationalist, and nobody knows anything about him. Well, most of the nations just voted for him, and it's only the first round, and they'll probably shepherd's crook him or try and do whatever they can. What they usually do is get all the other ones who lost to all vote for the other one. That's what they do. And then that's what they did in France with Le Pen. They make all the others team up against the other guy. Now this guy, they said, he's a nationalist, and he's pro farmers, not big farmers who farm the fields, and he's all for the farming. And they're saying how terrible he is. That's a terrible thing. According to the West, he's pro farmer. This is the mentality. And this is another thing with the UK. They're going along with the governments about these farmers because no one's backing them up. And they didn't either in the Netherlands. The general population in the cities, they don't realise what this farming thing's going to mean. They have no Scooby-Doo that there's going to be no food. Quickly. It only takes a couple of seasons for the grain silos to be empty, and the fridges, and the all the dried stuff and preserved stuff. It doesn't take long for the 68, 70 million people to eat it. That's where they're headed. And the other countries, they will not increase their exports of food because they'll be short of food. They won't do it. And that happened, actually. That happened a few years back during the other crises. And they said, no, we're keeping our food. No, we need to keep our silos full before we export anything. And they had a couple of export bans here in Bulgaria, sunflower products, and I think it was grain as well. But yeah, they'll keep hold of their own food. Make no mistake, that won't be going to Western Europe. Maybe in the old days, they'd starve the Eastern Europeans and so they could eat. That won't happen now. I'll guarantee that will not happen. It won't happen. They might do it in, I don't know. I don't know where the food comes from. A lot of it comes from South America now, doesn't it? Morocco. But it won't happen here. They won't be getting any food from here. If it means people are short here, no way. Jose, no chance. And that's another thing that Bulgaria's got is food self-sufficiency and energy and water for everything. Got everything here, and it's all affordable. So so look up this Sasha Yanshin. He's very good, and he's just straight to the point. And I've been watching him for a long time now, but he knows what's going on, and he'll explain why having a petition is not going to save the UK. Okay, cheers.